Okay, so welcome once again. So we're joined today by Michael La Ronn. So Michael La Ronn is the author of over 50 science fiction and fantasy novels and self-help books for writers. His books include The Good Necromancer series, the Last Dragon Lord series, and the Android X series, to name just a few. His writing is about heroes rising up against incredible odds to be the best possible version of themselves. Michael devoted himself to the writing life in 2012 after a near-death experience with a deadly illness. Realizing that life was too short to die without pursuing his passions, he dedicated himself to being an industry-savvy author, marketer, and entrepreneur. When he's not writing novels, Michael runs the popular YouTube channel Author Level Up, where he publishes weekly advice videos for writers. Author Level Up has over 25,000 subscribers and nearly 1 million lifetime views. He also hosts a podcast called The Writer's Journey, where he talks about his life as a writer and new and interesting ideas about the writing life. Michael also serves on the staff of the Alliance of Independent Authors as the US ambassador. He co-hosts the Ask Ali member Q&A podcast, where he answers new writers' most burning questions about self-publishing. Michael is a dynamic public speaker and is an expert on productivity, writing, business, and craft. His main focus is writing the best books he can and helping other writers to do the same. Michael was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and is a proud St. Louisian? Sorry.
Lewiston, yeah, St.
Lewiston.
Lewiston.
He currently lives in Des Moines, Iowa with his wife and daughter. I'm so excited about having Michael here because I have been following Michael's YouTube channel for a while. And I actually also use some of his videos as content for our rewrite courses and classes. So without further ado, here is Michael.
Well, thank you, Christina. I appreciate that introduction and welcome everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you today. And I love talking about tools that writers can use. And I particularly love talking about writing apps. And so we're going to be talking about Scrivener today. Now, I recognize that there may be some of you in the crowd that have not heard of Scrivener. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about why this is what I affectionately call the Cadillac of writing apps, why you should consider using it, and what are some of the greatest hits? What are some of the great features that you can use? And so while I would love to go in depth and super nitty gritty today, what we're really going to be doing is taking a 10,000 foot view. So I'm going to be showing you some of the greatest hits of Scrivener, so to speak. And I hope that our talk today will kind of get some ideas planted in your head about what's possible with Scrivener, because there are so many things that you can do with it. Now, first and foremost, when many of us start writing, what we like to typically do is we'll use what's on our computer. So computers come with Microsoft Word, they come with OpenOffice, or you can download that for free, or they might come with Apple Pages. And as a default, we tend to start to use what we have. And those apps are great, but they're very much all-purpose writing apps. So Microsoft Word, you can use that to write a novel. You can use it to write blog posts. You can use it to write high school essays. You can use it to write scientific papers. There's lots of tools you can use, but it's not specifically designed for fiction writing. And so therefore, there's some friction in terms of how you do certain things. Scrivener is an app that is designed specifically for the craft of writing, mainly fiction, but also nonfiction. And so when you think about the tools that you use, if you want to be a professional writer, it makes a lot more sense to have a tool that makes it easier for you to write your best work faster and more efficiently. And Scrivener offers a suite of different tools to help you plan your novel, write your novel, edit your novel, and even format your novel for publication, which is a lot harder to do in Microsoft Word. So I like to refer to Scrivener as it's like the love child between Evernote and Microsoft Word. Evernote is one of the apps that are out there that allows you to clip things from the internet and create digital notebooks with ideas. And Microsoft Word is your typical word processor. If they got together and had a baby, it would look like Scrivener. All right. So what I'm going to do is jump into the app here and show you how it looks and why it's important. All right. So this is Scrivener for Mac. Now I got to give a caveat. I am demoing the Mac version today. Scrivener does have a Windows version, but it is not as good. It doesn't have as many features, and we've been promised a new version over and over again, but we haven't gotten it yet. So when we do, hopefully they'll reach the same level of level of number of features. But I'm showing you the Mac version today, so just know that if you use Windows, your mileage may vary based on some of the things we show. But I'll try to show some of the most universal features. Also, I want to let you know that the Mac version also has a dark mode. When I do these demos, I like to do the dark mode nowadays because it's easier on people's eyes. But just know that by default, out of the box, you're going to be looking at a white version of Scrivener. So this is Scrivener, and you'll notice there are a number of things here. I want to draw your attention to the left-hand side of the screen right here. This is what's called the binder. So in Microsoft Word, you would have to typically scroll for days if you wanted to find something in your manuscript, or you'd have to set up a table of contents or find some way to jump between the sections of your novel quickly. The way Scrivener works is Scrivener is like a notebook that allows you to jump between anything in your book at the click of a button. So here I've got chapter 1 highlighted here. I can jump to chapter 2 just like that. And I can jump to chapter 1 again, and I can jump between all the sections in my book, which I think is very helpful. Now you'll notice here that I've got a draft folder. The draft folder is everything that is in my manuscript. So when I write my novel, chapter 1, chapter 2, all the way down to chapter 50, whatever that looks like, everything that's in this draft folder is what is in my novel. Everything that is outside of the draft folder is not in my novel. So I've got a folder here called Planning and Research. I can keep my outline here if I want to. So I have this outline for a book that I wrote, and I won't go into it, but I've got the entire book outlined here. And I can refer to that at the click of a button. So I can jump from chapter 1 to my outline, chapter 1 to my outline. If I want to do some research, I can clip articles off of the internet into my binder in Scrivener, and I can organize everything. I can even create folders. I can do all sorts of things. So what this does is this binder, it's like a digital notebook. It allows you to stay organized. And you can have as many of these as you want, and Scrivener can take it. It has a lot of firepower. Whereas we all know, if you have a Microsoft Word file, the bigger your Microsoft Word file gets, the more intensive it gets, the more beastly it gets, and it's harder to load. Scrivener can take a lot. All right. And if I want to, if I go into this draft folder, I can even create folders. So let's say that I finished my first book and I'm ready to write my second. Well, I created a folder here by clicking on this little plus button in New Folder. I can click and drag my chapters into here like this. And then when I'm ready to write my next book, I can create a folder with book 2. And so then I can jump between different books in my series. Very, very difficult to do with Microsoft Word or Pages. Another thing I can do is I can click this little magnifying glass here, and I can search across my entire binder. So if I search for, like, one of my main characters is named Lester. If I type that name in, it'll return all of the documents in my binder that have the word Lester in it. So if I click on chapter 1 and I scroll down here in the middle of the screen, you'll see that Scrivener automatically highlights every instance of the word Lester, which is great. But that's not all. If I go up to the top of the screen here where it says chapter 1 and it gives me a word count, which is great. If I click on that and I type in Lester, I can get an even more robust search. So I can find out, I can actually see what the manuscript says, which is great. And I can even do a full project search if I want. So not only does Scrivener give you a notebook that you can stay organized, it allows you to jump and search and find things that would be a lot harder to do in Word. You can, even if you want to, say your book has a bunch of links in it, you can search for every instance of a link in Scrivener. You can search for every instance of bold It's super cool, and it's the functionality and the firepower is there if you need it. Okay, so that is the binder in a nutshell. What I want to show you now is before I do that, Christina, I can't see the participant panel when I'm sharing. How's everybody doing? Do I need to go faster, slower? Everything looking okay?
Hey, Michael. I think everybody's doing okay.
Okay.
We're
I
all
just
good.
want Okay, just wanted to make sure I check in. I don't
We're
forget
good.
about that.
We're good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So now I want to talk about the tools that Scrivener offers to help you write your novel. So we talked about how you can clip things and do research and keep your outline separate from your novel. Now I want to show you the writing experience. So if we look at the center screen here, most of you, it's going to look pretty similar to the writing app that you use today if you don't use Scrivener. It's very similar to Microsoft Word. You can change the font, you can change the bolding, paragraph alignments, all that stuff. So I'm not going to go over that because you know how that movie ends. But there are some really cool things that you can do. So let me show you here while I'm writing. There is a neat little feature in Scrivener called composition mode. So if you give me 1 second, if I click this little button here where it's the little square with the arrows on it, I'm going to click this and give me 1 second. What this is going to do is it is going to go full screen. All right. So hopefully everyone can see this now. So what this did is it eliminated all of the stuff you just saw on my screen. So there's no binder, there's no formatting, there's no other windows that can be distracting. Scrivener just lets you focus on the work itself, which is great. All right. And so now all you can do is focus on the writing. You don't have to worry about any distractions, which I happen to like quite a bit. So if I scroll down here, you'll see that we have a couple of different options. I can change the text scale if I wanted to do that. So I don't know about the rest of you, but with my eyesight the way it is, I like it at about 200. I can also change the paper position if I wanted to do that. I can change the paper width. So if I want it to be full width, if I want it to be tall and skinny, I can do that. And I also have access to my binder. So I said that the binder disappeared, but I can still access it at the click of a button. So if I click on this Go To button here, I have all the folders that are available in my binder. So if I want to jump to chapter 2, I can jump to chapter 2 just like that. Now, it also has a really cool mode. It's called focus mode. I like this a lot. So if I click this and I say focus line, what it does is it highlights only the line that your cursor is on, and it makes everything else fade into the background. I happen to love this. This is great. When you want to get into a state of flow, oh man, this is phenomenal. And then what I can do, if I click around, you'll see that the cursor, the focus mode focuses on wherever I was. All right. So what I could also do, I can focus at the sentence level. So it can focus on whatever sentence I'm working on, or I can focus it on the paragraph level. So just some additional tools to help you write. All right. And what I could also do is if I wanted to, I can fade in background, fade everything in and out. So now I can see my computer and I can fade it back if I want, or some people like it in the middle, just like that. But I like the full composition mode. So that is the full screen mode. That is a very powerful feature to help you get into a state of flow, focus on the words, and focus on getting your novel done. All right. So I exited the full screen mode. We're back into Scrivener now. And so another thing I want to show you, and this is very, very helpful, a helpful thing to understand, is Scrivener is not just about writing your book. It also has a number of tools available to help you edit your book. So, we're in the middle of National Novel Writing Month right now, which is great. So a lot of people are writing their novels. Well, what happens when you've got a finished novel? You probably have to go back through your drafts and do some editing. And Scrivener has a suite of tools to help you do that. And the first of those tools is the feature that I probably use this the most. Worth the price of admission. Honestly, there's a number of things that are worth the price of admission for this app, but this is definitely worth it. It's called split screen. So if I hover the mouse over this little square here, this is called the toggle split. And if I click this, I now have two instances of binder items. So here I've got chapter 2 on the top and chapter 2 on the top. That doesn't make any sense. How would you use this? Well, let's say that I want to compare what I have written to my outline. So I want my outline on the bottom and chapter 2 on the top. So if I click chapter 2 and then I go over into the binder here and I click outline, well, look at that. I have my outline here on the bottom and I can compare that to what I have here on the top. That is, it's an extraordinary feature. You can't get this in Microsoft Word. You'd have to put two Microsoft Word files and you'd have to get them real skinny and get them up against each other. It's an exercise in agony. Whereas here, Scrivener handled that like a champ. And if I hold the Alt key, for those of you who maybe don't like the horizontal, if I hold the Alt key and click on the little toggle button, I can make it go vertical. So, and you can change the window here, and it doesn't do anything to the window over here, which I think is very helpful. Now I'm going to show you something that is really, really cool. You may not use it, but it may be helpful for you to know that it exists. Let's say I want not 2 windows side by side, not 3 windows side by side, but I want 4 windows side by side. Well, I can do that too. So if I hold the Alt key and click one of the items in the binder, and I drag it into the top ribbon here, look at that, I got 3 windows. And if I click and drag into the other one, look at that, I got 4 windows. Now, that is an extreme situation. I've only done that maybe once or twice. But hey, maybe you want to look at chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the same screen without having to click between them. So that's a really cool feature that Scrivener has that I always like to let people know about because it's pretty cool. It's definitely amazed me when I saw it for the first time. All right, so we're going to reset back to our original function here. Now I want to show you some other outline, or not outline tools, but some other editing tools. Now you're editing your book. All right. Now, one of the things that Scrivener doesn't have, it's one of the downsides to it, is that it doesn't have a track changes feature. And it would be nice if it did, but it does have some other features that are very helpful. And one of those features is what we call revision mode. So what revision mode does is it makes it easier to see what your revisions are. So if I go up to the Format tab here, and I select revision mode, I can select first revision here to signify that it's our first revision. And you'll notice that the cursor here changed to red. So now let's say if I wanted to start typing, it's a dark and stormy night. Well, everything I type from now on is going to be highlighted in red. So that is a very, very helpful way, just visually, as you are editing your novel, you can see what is part of the first draft. You can see what's a part of the first revision. And then if I go up here again and select revision mode, I can change things to a second revision. And I can go in here and change, maybe add an adjective there. So then I can see first revision or first draft, first revision, second revision, and it just helps you keep track of things visually as you're working on it. And when you're done, you don't have to worry about exporting this and you've got all sort of colors and things in it. It's kind of annoying, isn't it? You can go to Format and you can go to revision mode and you can remove all revisions and it keeps everything, but it just changes the colors. I find that to be extremely helpful and extremely valuable. Now, that's not all. Wait, there's more, as they say on infomercials here in the United States. I can also use what I think is Scrivener's most underrated feature. I know a lot of people that use Scrivener. Almost nobody knows about this feature, okay? And this is probably its best editing tool, okay? And that is called linguistic focus. It sounds really fancy. It is really fancy, and it is very practical. So if I click on edit and I go here into writing tools and I click linguistic focus, it gives me this little panel here. And you'll notice that there are a number of parts of speech. So let's just say I click on nouns here. Well, look what happened. Scrivener just eliminated everything and is only showing me the nouns. Now, it didn't delete anything. There's nothing that got deleted. It just faded everything into the background so I can see what all my nouns are. Okay. Now you're probably thinking, oh, okay, that's cool, Michael, but what's the point of that? Well, let's say that I wanted to look at all of my dialogue in isolation. If I click this direct speech here, well, there's nothing here, but if I scroll down, look at that. Look at, this is all my dialogue. So there's something to be said about when you're editing to edit items in isolation. I personally love to look at my dialogue all at once. So I'll edit my dialogue all at once, and then I'll edit all of my action all at once. And this just makes it a lot easier for you to do that because you don't have to worry about like looking at a needle in a haystack when you're trying to find certain things. And so if you wanted to, you can click this little fader here. And if you wanted to, you can change the level of fade. Some people don't necessarily like it; it disappears. So if you wanted to fade it in and out, you could do that as well. So that's linguistic focus, and I just happen to love that, folks. That's one of my favorite features. All right, and that can really be an ally for you when you're editing. And so what I also want to show you here is the corkboard. If I click on this little inspector item here, this little eye in a circle, this gives me some additional features. We won't go into these today, but one of the things that it shows you is a synopsis. So you can type in a summary of what happens in the chapter. So maybe you're going through your book, you want to type in a summary so you can stay organized. Well, what if you could see all of your chapters on like index cards? Because that's something that a lot of writers do. They'll do physical index cards. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could do that separately, like digitally? Well, I can do a synopsis for every chapter. And if I click this, I'll minimize the inspector. And if I click on my draft item in the corkboard, and then I click on this little item up here, it gives me a corkboard. And if I click on book 1, you can see here, I've got these index cards that have synopses of all of my different chapters, which is great. And if I click and drag them around, you can see that they moved order in the binder, which is also really helpful. And if I click and drag here, I can click and I can even update the synopsis here. All right, I can change it. And that's another very helpful feature for folks who just like to stay organized. You can go as detailed or as not detailed as you want. The functionality is there. It's just up to you to decide if you want to actually use it. All right, now we got a little bit of extra time, and I want to show everybody a feature that is also worth the cost of admission for Scrivener, and that is that it allows you to back up your work. Now, I know that I'm just going to make an assumption. I know this to be true personally for me. But if I have a Microsoft Word file, I cannot tell you how many times I accidentally make a change and I can't go back and find it, or how many times I've accidentally lost Microsoft Word files, because sometimes when you're writing your novel, sometimes you keep it in different Microsoft Word files and it's easy to lose track of all those. Scrivener says, no, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to make it impossible for writers to ever lose any of their work. So we're going to back up their work behind the scenes without them having to do anything, so that if something goes wrong with your computer one morning, or if you make a change and you realize, I didn't want to do that, I need to go back, there are backups available for you to do that. Now, Scrivener costs, I think it's about $50. This in and of itself, when I saw this feature 10 years ago, I held up my wallet and just said, take my money. All right. So if I click on the Scrivener item here on the menu, and I click preferences and I go to backup, you can turn on automatic backups. And there's a number of different features here that you can go into. but you can automatically back up on project close, automatically back up with each manual save. And what it does is it backs up everything in your binder. So everything I just showed you, it not only backs up my novel, it backs up my research, it backs up my outline, it backs up all the index cards I created, it backs up everything. And I can specify how many backups I want to keep. And then what I can do is, if I ever need it, I can open this backup folder and I can go in and look at all of my backups. And they're zip files, and I just unzip them, open them up, and I can find the changes that I need, copy and paste, throw it back into my regular manuscript, and I'm there. So it's very unlikely, if you're using the program correctly. There are some things that you can do to fool it, but if you're using the program correctly, it is very unlikely that you're going to lose any work. And there are even more features that Scrivener offers that I didn't go over today that allow you to back up your work, take snapshots of chapters that you've done. It's very difficult to lose work here. And the worst thing you can do as a writer is lose your work, because it takes blood, sweat, and tears to come up with your stories. And it's painful just to even think about losing a chapter, let alone an entire novel. And so Scrivener is designed to make sure that that doesn't happen as much as possible. And that is the reason I love Scrivener, folks. Again, I hope you can see after this talk today why I affectionately call this the Cadillac of writing apps. I call it the caviar of writing apps, because Microsoft Word can't do half of the stuff I just showed you today. I even call it the Swiss Army knife of writing apps, because it's one of those things where you will use Scrivener differently than I use it, and that's okay. The tools and the functionality is there for you to turn it on and off as you need it, and you'll find that there are many of the different Scrivener items and features that you'll need at least once in your writing career. And for an app that requires a one-time fee, I can tell you that this has paid for itself over the years for me. When I bought it, it was like $35, and that $35 just pays dividends over and over and over. And I can tell you that I would not be nearly as prolific as I am today if it were not for this app, because what I have been able to do is I've been able to invest in courses, invest in books, spend the time looking at a lot of the documentation, so that Scrivener can become an extension of my fingers. And it even has an iPhone version and an iPad version that is phenomenal. So with that, I like I said, this is just the greatest hits of Scrivener. This is the Mac version only of it. But I hope that what I've showed you today has showed you some of the possibilities of what you can do with an app like this and how it can help you be more productive. All right. Christina, are you there? I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Michael. Did we go through the compile?
We did not. Scrivener does allow you to export Microsoft Word files, EPUB files, Kindle Ready files, but in many respects, that's a whole other ball game that would probably require a different training. Compile has a learning curve. Yeah. It is not. It's one of those things, when I first used Scrivener, it was the hardest thing for me to learn.
It's so difficult. Oh my God.
It is difficult, but here's the thing. It's difficult, but once you learn it, it clicks. You never have a problem with it again. It just takes some time to just block a weekend and sit down, follow some folks who know how to use it. Yeah. And then at the end of the weekend, you'll be fine. Brilliant. But yeah, I can't go over that in a 20, 30-minute training.
That's fine. So just so people know, so the compile function is basically one of the reasons that I love Scrivener. Absolutely. It basically allows you to export your manuscript so that it's manuscript ready. So everything that as soon as you press the compile button, it will literally compile everything in the order that it's meant to be. It will have the indents where the indents meant to be. It will have the chapter headings, like everything is literally like ready for you to send to your editor, your agent, publishing house, whatever. And it just once you get the settings right, it just saves time. So doing the stuff in compile that you do and compile in Microsoft Word can take you like half a day, especially if you're writing like long form. If you've got like 30 chapters or more, it can literally take you a day just to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. But in Scrivener, once you get the settings done correctly, it literally like just spits it out and your manuscript looks beautiful and it's ready to send out.
Yeah, it really is a set it and forget it type situation. So,
100%.
and that's why it can help you from the moment you come up with an idea all the way down to when you're ready to publish.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michael, for um, that concise workshop. So I'm just going to stop recording now.